All right, what is up, guys? I wanted to do a short video talking about this new Genesys format. So, Konami announced out of the clear blue today a brand new alternate format that they are going to sanction. And most of you have probably already read the white paper on this, but I'm going to go ahead and go through it and give us just a brief overview of what this is going to be about. So, this is an alternate format where links and pendulums are not playable, but instead there's no ban list. None of the cards that are currently banned are illegal. And same thing with limited, etc. But they have a point value associated with them. So every event that you play in Genesys format is going to have a specific point total maximum, and your deck point total has to be equal to or lower that point maximum for that specific event. And so they have a list here on the site of all of the cards they have assigned point values to. And it's a lot, but it's not a lot when you think about it. And this is really, really, really interesting the way they've done this. And I kind of want to touch on that. So I want to say right off the bat, I am mostly very positive about this. I have a good feeling about this. I've been thinking about it all day ever since I saw the announcement come out. It's been a couple hours now for my thoughts to kind of stir on this, and I am mostly very positive about this. However, I do have some what I think are pretty valid concerns, and you'll have to forgive my general cynicism regarding Konami's ability to efficiently maintain this, and let's be frank, like really act like they care. Which is something that Konami has struggled with these type of side alternate formats in the past, which we'll talk about. So this is playable at your local OTS store effective immediately, I guess. And there are going to be events featuring this format very soon. So there's going to be qualifiers, and there's going to be a full Genesys format YCS starting in 2026. So that's very promising. So when we look at the cards that are given point values here, we notice a couple of things. So one thing right off the bat is they say that the standard point cap is 100. So your deck point total has to be, main side and extra has to be 100 or less. And however, there are thousands of cards that have a point total of 0, which means your core, it says right here, most cards cost 0, so your deck core may be nothing, but if you want to play, as an example here, Arch Nemesis Protoss, it's 100 points. So that's where they've balanced things, and if you look at the specific cards they have picked here, this looks to me like something that has been heavily curated over a long period of the game's history, where through the results of player play, they can easily point out which cards are problematic without a ban list, which cards are, problematic in combination with each other. So if there is a card that is an FTK enabler, or if there is a card that is a floodgate, or anything that results in just awful uninteractive gameplay, it has a point total of 100. So Dweller being a floodgate, a lot of these being Artifact Scythe being a floodgate as well, Beatrice enabling FTKs, other cards like Card of Safe Return, etc. If you look at the list here, so Charge of the Light Brigade has 100 points. That's weird. Cold Wave has 100 points, etc., etc. And so Crimson Dragon has 100 points too. Okay, that's fine. So what you may notice here again is that they have pretty well curated all of the most playable cards in the game, but there are a lot of things that are not on here. And so I think a lot of people are thinking about this in terms of what will be playable in the design space, where the standard point total for an event is 100 points. And so if that is the mentality that we have going into this, I think there's a lot of things that we are speculating here and taking for granted that I don't like. where until we know more about this, or until one of these events fires and we have results from it, there's a lot of things we just don't know. And I think one of the things we don't know is, are all these events going to fire with 100 points? And if they are, what do the best decks look like? What are some of the creative deck building decisions people are going to go with? Are people going to totalize their strategy with a just game-ending floodgate type of card, and the rest of their deck be 0 points? Or are they going to try to mix and match with different point totals with hand traps and things like that? Because as you notice here, Ash Blossom has 15 points. I think I saw somewhere Nibiru has 10. So there is, we really just don't know what this is going to look like. But let me talk about my pros with it. I'll talk about my cons with it. So my pros with it is the idea that, again, when we look at how many like deck cores are not in here, there's not a single Dragoonity card in here. There's not a single Red Dragon Archfiend card in here. If you think about a lot of the deck cores that have, or a legacy support that's come out over the last couple of years, where these cards are so much more powerful than any of the stuff that came out in the early era of the game, but they will just never see play by virtue of power creep, and by virtue of the fact that there is just so many more powerful things to play. They don't have a format where they can shine in. And so if you look at like Darkwing Blast, for example, is the set I like to point out, where it's like, if you look at the Ninja cards and the Amazoness cards in there and the Blackwing cards in there, those strategies are all extremely fun, extremely interesting, and extremely powerful, but they would never have seen any competitive success because that was during tier format, and that was the same set that Kashtira, Fenrir, and Unicorn were released in. So no one was ever going to play those cards. And I have noticed here that there are a couple of Blackwings on here, which is interesting. But other than that, if your core is completely unhit on here, this is like a dream come true type of format for me, where you have a chance for those like D-list strategies that got legacy support that in theory are really, really good to actually see some competitive success. So that I like a lot about this. There's also, people are complaining a lot about the fact that it doesn't have Link and Pendulum. I saw this one person like crashing out so hard, being like, I've never wanted to quit the game so bad in my life after seeing no Link and Pendulum. And I'm like, bro, just get over it. Just play standard format. Like, nobody's stopping you. It's fine. And I think in order for them to do what they're doing, it does make sense. Not so much with Pendulum, but definitely with Links. You can't do what they're doing here and have Links be playable easily. There's a problem you're going to run into in the fact that there are so many generically powerful Links that it's very hard to balance around them. And I think Link-based strategies, just being that the Link summoning mechanic is just inherently a bit stronger than the Synchro or Xyz mechanic by virtue of how easy it is to Link summon, those decks would be more dominant. And so strategies that have Links as a part of them, like Sword Soul, the Synchro deck with Links in it, that kind of thing, get put in check. Or what's another one? Can't think of any. But there's so many powerful generic Links. You would have to work around Hulk, Linkcross, Auroradon, Appaloosa, Isolde, the Simorgh, Link. All of those you'd have to work around, and I just don't think that is doable. There's also the thing in terms of power creep where Link monsters being as generic as they were, some people have not been playing long enough to remember this, but when they introduced Link monsters into the game, specifically Boral Sword and then later Access Code Talker, allowed any like mid-range deck to have a line to an OTK. And so it does not matter how like slow or low power your monsters are or in your strategy, um, because you have Boral Sword in your extra deck, you can deliver an OTK. And so that resulted in a lot of games ending much quicker, and also resulted in the the power creep of the game just exponentially being pushed forward by a lot. So I think not having access to generic links is an extremely good idea. So I will defend that decision. I'm completely fine with no link and pendulum. It does no pendulum does suck because I don't get to play DDD, and I don't get to play Lunalight because no Tiger. I don't get to play Super Heavy Samurai in any kind of like synchro spam decks. Um, but my negativity towards this, I'll talk about my cons, is that people have already identified some issues with this list. For example, there is no Exodia limbs on here. So if you have the Exodia limbs at 3 copies each with no cost to them, it's only a matter of time before somebody finds a way to break that. I understand that a lot of the deep draw tools and a lot of the more broken cards, like even your Pot of Greed and Graceful Charity, which are now playable by virtue of this, they have uh, point totals, and you're not going to be able to spam multiple copies of all of those easily, but someone's going to find a way to break that with multiple copies of the Exodia pieces in here. So that I'm not sure how I feel about. But also, there appears to be so this line right here: official tournament stores can set their own cap for their own tournaments. They can, but they ain't gonna do that. Like, are you kidding me? Like, this ask to be like, oh, OTS stores can just do their own thing and decide for themselves what point total they want to balance around. It's like, they're not going to do that. OTS stores have way too much to do. They are trying to organize the tournament and keep all these rowdy people under control and sell product and attend to customers. And some OTS stores are ran with like fewer than 5 people as their staff. And so to be like, oh, I need to micromanage this tournament and maintain a list or update the point total as events go on, they're just not going to do that. And that, to me, reminds me of, again, the other alternate formats that Konami announced. It just felt half-assed when they did it. So they announced the Common Charity, Time Wizard, the stupid Deckmaster one, and whatever the other one was. When I don't even remember what the other one was because nobody played it. And OTS stores did not support these because there was no interest from the player base. So OTS stores are not going to brute force this into existence. The player base has to be willing to show that there's interest in it. And Edison being as popular as it was, I'm sorry to say that was going to happen whether or not Konami officially supported Time Wizard or not. Because Edison became popular because of COVID and because of just general burnout with the modern game, disillusionment with the modern game, and the appeal to go back to a more simplistic yet skillful, balanced era of the game. And so I don't think Konami deserves any credit for the popularity of the Edison format, especially because they've tried to smother it in the crib in so many different ways recently, but I won't get into that here. So if they just standardize it and say OTS stores will try it with 100 points, whatever, that's fine. But OTS stores are not going to min-max their tournaments with whatever point values they want. I just don't see that happening. And this format would have to be like explosively popular to get your OTS store to want to sanction tournaments for this. They got too much else going on. They got like 4 formats of Magic they got to play. They've got One Piece, they've got Digimon, they've got Pokemon, they've got Union Arena, they've got Star Wars now, the new Gundam card game to run, and they've got Yu-Gi-Oh! Twice a week, and they're and if you're lucky, they also have another. They maybe do their Time Wizard events as well, but this format would have to be very popular for that to catch on. And again, I think a lot of people are just kind of speculating in the design space of what decks are going to look like, where you have to carefully manage your point total. But there is sufficient anxiety to be concerned that these point totals are ill-considered. Now, I do think that just looking at the ones that have 100 points assigned to them, I do think they have accurately identified the cards that enable FTKs or are floodgates. I think they've done a great job of that. No frog FTK, no magical scientist FTK. None of that stuff is going to be possible with these cards at the point values that they are at. However, the point totals of cards at the lower end are just really, really strange, and I don't know how I feel about that. And there's also cards that, like, I don't care if you gave them 1,000 points. They really just should not be in this at all. Like, there are certain cards that I think can never, ever come off, because they make for awful tournament environments, and if people like maliciously build a deck around these, it's not going to be fun. So I do think all the Exodia pieces should be at 1. That is one thing. Last turn should not be legal because modern judges do not know how last turn works. They have to maintain a unofficial document with rulings on last turn. Konami does not tell them how last turn works, and self-destruct button. Forcing a draw is not fun and should not ever be legal. So yeah, hell, even Sixth Sense is on here. Like, you got to be okay. Maybe that's not as bad as some of the other banned cards, but so although, like I said, looking at this, I feel like they've done a really good job. I think that this list is going to take some fine tuning. So much like how you have to constantly update all of your decks, every ban list or whatever, this is going to be like, okay, I just got comfortable playing this format a certain way, and now we have shifted the point values of every card I play, and now I have to completely reconsider my strategy all over again, and that's going to be something we got to deal with on a regular basis with this. And I can tell you that's probably going to be the case just based on the fact that I think some of these point totals are ill-considered, and I know that's probably pretty cynical to assume, but we have no reason to trust that Konami's going to act like they give a crap about this, because now there is some reason to assume they care more about this than they did before, because if we look at Speed Duels, on one hand, Speed Duels had dedicated product releases for it, prizing support, etc. It was a side event at major tournaments and whatnot, but there was no dedicated YCS for Speed Duel, whereas this does have a dedicated YCS, and this also has the benefit of not needing a separate physical card pool. You don't have to buy a specific product for this. It's just different cards released in the same existing sets have different viability, which I think is good. But there is a chance that they will just post this doc, say, hey, stores can host this if they want, and then leave it alone, and nobody ever shows any interest in it, and it gets quietly abandoned over a period of time. They do a couple of the side events at YCSs, and they do the main YCS, and then it's never seen or heard from again. There is always that chance that they just do not support this and don't put any effort into it at all. But to kind of wrap up here, I want to talk about the part of this that interests me the most, and it is the design space, and like what I want to see out of this, and what I think would be the most interesting, and what I personally would love to see out of my local OTS store, is what I think is the most interesting thing to do with this is to run an event where the maximum point total you can have for your deck is 0. And what that will result in, looking at this list, is there are a lot of lower power deck cores, strategies from the last 5 years, or like really old strategies that have gotten legacy support in the last 5 years, that you can play at pretty much full power because none of their cards are on here, but you are playing with lower powered staples. And so what that would result in is, you can't play the hand traps that are really good. You play like lower power hand traps, or you can't play Feather Duster, you've got to play MST and stuff like that. You can't play Imperm or the Dominus cards, you've got to play like Fiendish Chain or Breakthrough Skill kind of thing. And that, I think, is a really, really, really interesting design space where you are dealing with, again, these like B tier strategies from the last like 5 years that were basically pack filler when they were released, but by the standards of older cards, they are still really, really powerful, and they are strategies with cohesion. Again, if you think about like pack filler from a decade and a half ago, there are decks that just do not work, do not function as core strategies. If you look at like late Arc 5 era, we had like triamids and digital bugs and crap like that. Those do not have a cohesive game plan at all. But if you look at pack filler from this era, again, we've got the Amazonas cards and the Ninja cards, or in Rage of the Abyss, we had like the new Six Samurai support and the new Shark support, stuff like that. And I'm sure like the new like Rose Dragon stuff from the new set that just came out is not going to see much play. Same thing there, where it's like we have like really powerful cards that are just not as good as what's going to be played in the meta. So whatever your like pet deck is that you love, but will, and it has a cohesive game plan, but a cohesive game plan that is just not as powerful as what's going to be in the meta, those decks in theory have a place here. But I only think they really have a place here if you host an event with the point maximum is at 0, and I think that will make for some of the most interesting deck building in this format, because again, Konami, they did the work for us. They say allegedly this format has been in development for 2 years, and where I do believe them on that, I still don't think that they, even to give them credit here, I don't think it's even reasonable to assume that they could have done enough preparation to account for every card in the game, especially cards that are not released yet. But like I said, there are a lot of strategies, a lot of archetypes that are just not on this list, and or like one of their best cards is on here, so you can play like a worse version of it. I'm interested to deck build within the design space of the point total being 100, but I'm much more interested to deck build within the design space of the point total being at 0. And I'm already going to start brainstorming some strategies with that in mind. And this is really like evocative to me of the deck cost system from some of like the GBA Yu-Gi-Oh games, and also like the PS2 Duels of the Roses, where you could not duel an opponent unless you had a deck cost that was equal to or less than theirs. This is kind of evocative of that to me. So I'm highly looking forward to this. I'm very positive about it. And I will try to come up with some decks that I think will mesh nicely in this. But we'll just have to see what happens. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.